My sister-in-law disconnected my 8-year-old son's hospital alarm. Nurses found him flatlined. 20 minutes later, I made sure she paid for it. Hi, I'm Abigail. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. I need to start by telling you about my son Lucas. He's 8 years old now, but when he was 5, our world shattered into a million pieces. We were at his kindergarten spring concert when it happened. Lucas was singing You Are My Sunshine with his class, his little voice bright and clear, when suddenly he clutched his chest and collapsed. The ambulance ride to Riverside General Hospital felt like it lasted forever. My husband Andrew held my hand so tight I thought my bones would break, but I didn't care. All I could see was Lucas's pale face, the oxygen mask covering his tiny features, the paramedics working over him with expressions that told me everything and nothing at once. Dr. Whitmore, the pediatric cardiologist, delivered the diagnosis that would change our lives forever: tetralogy of Fallot, a severe congenital heart defect. Lucas's heart hadn't formed properly in the womb. 4 distinct problems all working together to slowly kill my baby. Without surgery, Lucas won't survive past childhood, Dr. Whitmore said, her voice gentle but firm. Even with surgery, he'll need lifelong monitoring. His heart is fragile, Mrs. Chun. It's Abigail, I corrected automatically, though my brain was stuck on those words. Won't survive past childhood. Andrew and I were devastated, but we were also fighters. Lucas had his first open heart surgery 3 weeks after that kindergarten concert. I'll never forget how brave he was, how he squeezed my hand before they wheeled him into the operating room and said, "Don't worry, Mama. I'm strong like a superhero." The surgery was successful, but Dr. Whitmore's warnings echoed in my mind during every follow-up appointment. Any cardiac event could be life-threatening. If he shows symptoms: chest pain, difficulty breathing, irregular heartbeat, you get him to the hospital immediately. Minutes matter, Abigail. Sometimes seconds. I became an expert on Lucas's condition out of pure necessity. I organized his medications in color-coded pill boxes. I made detailed information sheets for his teachers at Oakwood Elementary. I taught the school nurse exactly what to watch for. Andrew and I took CPR classes 3 times, just to be sure we remembered everything perfectly. For 2.5 years we lived in this careful balance. Lucas was active and happy, obsessed with dinosaurs and superhero movies. He played modified soccer with other kids who had health conditions. He had playdates and birthday parties. We almost let ourselves believe life could be normal. Then, 2 months ago, everything fell apart again. Lucas woke me up at 2 in the morning, standing beside my bed in his Spider-Man pajamas, tears streaming down his face. "Mama, my chest hurts. It hurts really bad." His heart rate was erratic, jumping from 60 beats per minute to 120 and back down again. We threw on clothes and drove to Riverside General, Andrew breaking every speed limit while I sat in the back seat with Lucas, monitoring his pulse, trying to keep my voice calm while my own heart was trying to beat out of my chest. Dr. Whitmore admitted him immediately. "His heart rhythm is unstable," she explained, pulling up images on her computer screen that meant nothing to me but everything to her. "We need to keep him here for at least a week, maybe longer. We'll run tests, adjust his medications, and keep him on continuous cardiac monitoring." That meant Lucas would be hooked up to machines that tracked every beat of his damaged heart, every breath, every tiny change in his oxygen levels. Alarms connected directly to the nurse's station. If anything went wrong, help would arrive within seconds. That monitoring system was supposed to keep my son safe. I had no idea it would nearly kill him. This is where my sister-in-law, Vivian, enters the story. And God, do I wish she'd stayed out of it. Vivian is Andrew's younger sister, and from the moment we met 8 years ago, she made it crystal clear that I wasn't good enough for her precious brother. I'm a high school English teacher at Lincoln High, and Vivian always acted like I'd chosen the most pathetic career imaginable. She works in medical device sales and never misses an opportunity to mention her 6-figure income, her luxury condo in the city, her brand new Audi. When Andrew and I got married, Vivian wore a cream-colored dress that was basically white. When I got pregnant with Lucas, she told Andrew's parents that I'd baby-trapped their son. When Lucas was diagnosed with his heart condition, she actually had the audacity to say, "Well, genetic problems usually come from the mother's side of the family." Andrew would defend me, but he had this massive blind spot when it came to his sister. "She doesn't mean it the way it sounds," he'd say. "Vivian just struggles with expressing emotions properly. My best friend since college, Monica, saw right through her." "That woman is poison," Monica said after meeting Vivian at Lucas's 3rd birthday party. "She's jealous of you and she takes it out on you every single chance she gets." I know, I'd sighed. But she's Andrew's sister. What am I supposed to do? Set boundaries. Hard ones. You don't owe her access to your life just because she shares DNA with your husband. I tried, but Andrew's parents, Helen and Richard, constantly pressured us to include Vivian in everything. She's family, Helen would say, as if that magical word erased all of Vivian's cruelty. You need to make more of an effort, Abigail. When Lucas was hospitalized this time, Vivian showed up the very next day, carrying an enormous teddy bear and acting like she was Aunt of the Year. Poor Lucas, she cooed, presenting the bear with theatrical flair. Aunt Vivian is here to take care of you, sweetheart. At first, I appreciated the gesture. Maybe she actually cared about her nephew. Maybe this crisis would bring out something decent in her. I should have known better. The undermining started almost immediately. When I was explaining Lucas's current medication schedule to a new nurse, he was on 4 different heart medications now, each with specific timing requirements. Vivian interrupted. Actually, Abigail tends to be a bit overprotective and paranoid about Lucas's condition, she said with this concerned expression that I'm sure looked genuine to the nurse. You should probably verify everything she says directly with Dr. Whitmore. I stared at her, stunned. Excuse me? I'm just looking out for Lucas, Vivian said sweetly. You get so anxious about his health that sometimes you're not thinking clearly. No judgment, it's understandable given what you've been through. Andrew was down in the cafeteria getting us both coffee, and completely missed this exchange. When I told him about it later, he sighed. She's probably just trying to help in her own way. But my sister Jamie, who visited that afternoon, saw it differently. She's trying to make you look incompetent in front of the medical staff, Jamie said, her voice tight with anger. That's deliberate sabotage, Abby. Over the next few days, Vivian kept showing up during visiting hours. She brought Lucas gifts, video games, comic books, and bags of candy that Dr. Whitmore had specifically forbidden. Vivian, he can't have that, I said, taking a bag of gummy bears from Lucas's hands. His doctor said no sugar while we're trying to stabilize his heart rhythm. Oh please, Abigail. A little candy isn't going to kill him. You're being absolutely ridiculous. I'm following doctor's orders. You're being a controlling mother, Vivian snapped. No wonder Lucas gets so anxious. You hover over him constantly. You never let him just be a normal kid. I confiscated the candy, and Vivian immediately complained to Andrew that I was being unreasonable and creating unnecessary drama. Andrew, exhausted from sleeping in a hospital chair for 5 days straight, told me to just let Vivian visit without starting fights. I'm not starting fights, I said. She's actively undermining medical advice. She loves Lucas. That's all that matters. But it wasn't all that mattered. Because Vivian's behavior got worse. She started questioning the nurses in this aggressive, accusatory way. Are you absolutely sure you're giving him the correct dosage? How often are you actually checking on him? My brother and sister-in-law are very emotional right now, so I need to make sure someone rational is overseeing Lucas's care. One of the nurses, a kind woman named Diana who'd been taking care of Lucas since he was admitted, pulled me aside on the 4th day. Mrs. Montgomery, I need to mention something, Diana said quietly. Your sister-in-law has been asking very specific questions about Lucas's monitoring equipment. What the alarms track, how they work, what happens if they're turned off. It seemed odd. My blood ran cold. Why would she ask about that? I don't know, but it made me uncomfortable. I wanted you to be aware. I told Andrew immediately, but he brushed it off. She probably just wants to understand his care better. She's naturally curious. She works in medical device sales, remember? This is literally her field. Diana thought it was weird enough to warn me. Diana doesn't know Vivian like we do. I wish I'd pushed harder. I wish I'd trusted my instincts and banned Vivian from Lucas's hospital room right then and there. But I didn't. And that decision almost cost me my son's life. It happened on a Wednesday evening, exactly 1 week after Lucas had been admitted. Andrew had gone home to shower and grab clean clothes. I'd been at the hospital for 7 days straight, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside Lucas's bed, eating vending machine snacks and cafeteria sandwiches. I was exhausted, running on fear and adrenaline and terrible coffee. My mother, Grace, arrived around 5:30 that evening. Go eat something real, she insisted. I'll stay right here with Lucas. Take your time, honey. Get some actual food. Lucas was stable that evening, his heart monitor beeping steadily at 72 beats per minute. He was watching cartoons on the small TV mounted to the wall, laughing at something the characters were doing. He looked so normal, so healthy that I let myself believe everything would be okay. I kissed his forehead. I'll be back in 20 minutes, baby. Grandma's going to stay with you. Can you bring me apple juice? Lucas asked. I'll see what they have, I promised. I went downstairs to the cafeteria, grateful for the break. I ordered a turkey sandwich and a salad, sat by a window overlooking the parking lot, and tried to eat slowly. My phone buzzed with a text from Monica. How's Lucas today? Stable, I typed back. Finally getting real food. First time in a week. You need to take care of yourself too, she replied. Lucas needs his mom healthy. I was typing a response when Vivian showed up at the hospital. My mother told me later that Vivian seemed surprised to see her there. Oh, Grace, I didn't realize you'd be here, Vivian said. Abigail needed a break, my mom explained. She's been here nonstop for a week. Of course, poor thing, Vivian said with exaggerated sympathy. Hey, since you're here anyway, would you mind terribly grabbing me a coffee from the machine down the hall? I get it myself, but my knee has been absolutely killing me today. She made this elaborate show of rubbing her knee and wincing. My mother, always trying to be helpful and kind, agreed. I'll be right back, Lucas. Aunt Vivian will stay with you for just a minute. And that's when Vivian was alone with my son. According to the hospital's security investigation later, Vivian was alone in Lucas's room for exactly 17 minutes. At some point during those 17 minutes, she stood up from the visitor's chair, walked behind Lucas's hospital bed, and reached toward the monitoring equipment. The cardiac monitor itself, the machine displaying Lucas's heart rate, rhythm, and oxygen saturation on the screen remained on. But the alarm system that connected to the nurse's station, the one that would immediately alert medical staff if anything went wrong, was deliberately disconnected. The safety net keeping my son alive was silenced. My mother came back with the coffee, and Vivian left shortly after, claiming she had dinner plans with friends. Mom settled back into the chair beside Lucas's bed, not realizing anything was wrong. Why would she? The monitor in the room still showed Lucas's heart rhythm. Everything looked completely normal. I came back from the cafeteria about 15 minutes later, carrying a small apple juice box I'd convinced the cafeteria worker to give me. My mom headed home, and I settled into my familiar chair with a book I'd been trying to read for 3 days. Lucas was watching a nature documentary about dinosaurs, fascinated by the computer-generated T-Rex on screen. Mama, did you know that Tyrannosaurus Rex had teeth as big as bananas? I didn't know that, I said, smiling at him. That's pretty cool, buddy. He turned back to the TV and I opened my book. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. Everything was about to become a nightmare. About 10 minutes later, I noticed Lucas's breathing had changed. It was shallow and rapid, like he'd just run a race. I looked up from my book, watching his chest rise and fall too quickly. Lucas, baby, are you okay? He didn't respond. His eyes were closed, but his breathing was definitely wrong. I stood up, my book falling to the floor forgotten, and checked the monitor screen mounted to the wall. My heart dropped into my stomach. His heart rate was falling. 70 beats per minute. Then 65. Then 60. Lucas, I shook him gently. No response. His skin was turning pale. 55 beats per minute. 50. I ran to the door and screamed into the hallway. Nurse, I need help. Something's wrong with my son. Diana came running from the nurse's station, took one look at the monitor, and her face went white as paper. Code blue, room 412, she shouted, hitting a button on the wall. 45 beats per minute. The room flooded with medical staff within seconds. Dr. Whitmore appeared from somewhere, already pulling on gloves, her face set in grim determination. 40 beats per minute. They pushed me out of the way, surrounding Lucas's bed, working with practiced efficiency that somehow made everything more terrifying. Blood pressure dropping, someone said. Get the crash cart, someone else ordered. 35 beats per minute. Why didn't the alarm go off? Dr. Whitmore demanded, her hands on Lucas's chest. Why weren't we notified? A nurse checked the connections behind the bed. The alarm's been disconnected. It's not sending signals to the nurse's station. 30 beats per minute. How long has it been disconnected? Dr. Whitmore asked, but nobody answered because they were too busy trying to save my son's life. 25 beats per minute. Lucas, baby, please, I heard myself saying, though I don't remember deciding to speak. Please be okay. Please. 20 beats per minute. 15. 10. Then the line went flat. That horrible, continuous beep. My son was flatlining. I screamed. I know I screamed because my throat was raw afterward, but I don't remember the sound. Diana grabbed me, held me back as they worked on Lucas, as they pulled out the defibrillator, as Dr. Whitmore started compressions on my baby's chest. Clear. Lucas's small body jerked. The line stayed flat. Again. Clear. Another jerk. Still flat. Come on, Lucas, Dr. Whitmore muttered. Come on, kiddo. Don't do this. Clear. This time the line jumped. A blip. Then another. Then a rhythm, weak but there. I collapsed against Diana, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. They'd gotten him back. But for how long had his heart been stopped? What did those minutes without oxygen mean for his brain? Would my Lucas ever be the same? They moved Lucas to the cardiac ICU immediately, where he could be monitored even more intensively. The alarm systems there had redundancies upon redundancies. Nothing like this could happen again. Andrew arrived as they were wheeling Lucas's bed down the hallway, having gotten my frantic, barely coherent phone call. He looked at our unconscious son, at the medical team surrounding him, at my tear-stained face, and nearly collapsed himself. We held each other in that hallway, both of us shaking, both of us barely holding ourselves together. Dr. Whitmore found us an hour later in the ICU waiting room. Lucas was stable but still unconscious, his brain swelling slightly from the lack of oxygen. They'd put him in a medically induced coma to let his body heal. "He's alive because of you, Abigail," Dr. Whitmore said, sitting down across from us. "If you hadn't noticed his breathing change when you did, if you hadn't called for help immediately, we would have lost him. That alarm being disconnected meant we had no warning at all. Every second mattered." "How did the alarm get disconnected?" Andrew asked, his voice hoarse. "We don't know yet," Dr. Whitmore said. "The hospital is reviewing security footage and interviewing everyone who was in Lucas's room today. This has never happened before. Our alarm systems don't just fail. Someone had to manually disconnect it." Monica arrived within the hour, having dropped everything when I called her. She sat with me while Andrew stayed in the ICU with Lucas, just being present because there was nothing else anyone could do. "Who was in the room today?" Monica asked gently. "Just me, Andrew, my mom," and I stopped mid-sentence, my blood turning to ice. "Oh my God. Vivian." Monica's expression hardened immediately. "What about Vivian?" "She was alone with Lucas for about 20 minutes while my mom got her coffee." The realization hit me like a physical blow. Diana warned me. She told me Vivian was asking weird questions about the alarm system. I told Andrew, but he said I was overreacting. "You need to tell the hospital right now," Monica said, already standing up. The security footage confirmed everything. Vivian entered Lucas's room at 5:47 p.m. My mother left to get coffee at 5:51. At 5:56, the footage showed Vivian standing up from her chair, glancing at the door, then moving behind Lucas's bed. Her body blocked the camera's view of exactly what she was doing, but she was clearly reaching toward the equipment mounted on the wall. The hospital's technical team confirmed that the alarm system was disconnected at 5:57 p.m. Vivian left the room at 6:04. My mother returned at 6:05. The alarm remained disconnected until the code blew at 6:37. The hospital called the police immediately. 2 detectives arrived at Riverside General around 10 that night. Detective Ramirez and Detective Foster, both from the Major Crimes Unit. They interviewed everyone, me, Andrew, my mother, Diana, all the nurses who'd been on duty. When they brought Vivian in for questioning the next morning, she initially denied everything. "I didn't touch anything," she insisted. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I visited my nephew, brought him a magazine, and left. That's it." But the security footage was damning. When they showed her the video of her standing behind Lucas's bed right at the exact moment the alarm was disconnected, her story changed. "I was adjusting his pillow," she said. "The wires were tangled. I was just trying to make him more comfortable." "The alarm disconnect is on the opposite side of the bed from his pillow," Detective Ramirez said. "And it requires pressing a specific button and holding it for 3 full seconds. That's not something you do by accident, Ms. Montgomery." Vivian's story kept changing. She bumped it with her elbow. She was trying to see what all the machines did. She thought it was a light switch. "Jamie, my sister, has a law degree even though she practices corporate law. She got involved immediately, sitting with me during one of the police interviews. This wasn't an accident," Jamie told the detectives. "Vivian has been undermining my sister for days, questioning the medical staff, asking specific questions about the alarm systems. This was deliberate." The police dug deeper. They got a warrant for Vivian's phone records and found Google searches from the days before the incident. "How do cardiac monitors work? Can you disable hospital alarms? What happens when heart monitor alarm is off? And most chilling, how long can a child survive cardiac arrest without treatment?" They also found text messages between Vivian and her friend from work, a woman named Kimberly. Messages where Vivian complained about me, about how I treated her, about how I acted like I was the only person who cared about Lucas. "Abigail acts like she's the only one who knows anything about Lucas's condition." One message read, "She treats everyone like they're incompetent. Someone needs to show her what happens when she's not in control for once." When confronted with this evidence, Vivian finally admitted the truth to her lawyer, who then tried to negotiate a plea deal. She disconnected the alarm on purpose. She'd wanted to teach me a lesson about being an overprotective mother. According to her statement to her lawyer, Vivian's plan was that Lucas would have some minor medical event, nothing serious, just something small, and the nurses wouldn't be immediately alerted because of the disconnected alarm. By the time anyone noticed something was wrong, it would prove that I was right to be worried, but it would also show that my constant anxiety and hovering weren't the only things keeping Lucas safe. I thought the nurses would check on him on their regular rounds anyway, she told her lawyer. I didn't think anything actually serious would happen. I just wanted Abigail to see that her paranoia was causing unnecessary stress for everyone, including Lucas. The delusion was absolutely staggering. She had deliberately endangered a critically ill child's life to prove a point about my parenting style. What she hadn't counted on, what she apparently never bothered to actually understand despite all her medical device sales experience, was how serious Lucas's heart condition really was. When his heart started failing and no alarm sounded, those were minutes we could never get back. Minutes that could have resulted in brain damage or death. Andrew was destroyed when he learned the full truth. His own sister had nearly murdered our son. I knew she didn't like you, he said, his voice hollow. I knew she was jealous that she said cruel things. But this? I don't understand how anyone could. He couldn't finish the sentence. Neither could I. Helen and Richard were in complete denial at first. Vivian made a mistake, Helen said when we finally sat down with them 2 days after Lucas woke up from his medically induced coma. She didn't mean for Lucas to get hurt. She just wasn't thinking clearly. She disabled a life-saving medical device on purpose, I said, my voice cold and hard. Your grandson nearly died because your daughter wanted to teach me a lesson about being a worried mother. Abigail, I know you're upset, Richard started. Upset? I cut him off. Your daughter researched how to disable hospital alarms. She planned this. And when the police confronted her, she lied repeatedly until the evidence was so overwhelming she had no choice but to admit what she'd done. Helen started crying. Richard sat there in silence, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 days. Eventually, even they couldn't deny what Vivian had done. The evidence was too clear, too damning. Vivian was arrested and charged with reckless endangerment of a child, interference with medical equipment, and attempted manslaughter. Because the crime happened in a hospital and involved deliberately tampering with life-saving medical equipment, the charges were severe. The district attorney wanted to make an example of the case. Vivian's lawyer, an expensive defense attorney that Helen and Richard hired, tried to argue that she hadn't intended to cause serious harm, that she'd simply made a catastrophically bad decision without fully understanding the consequences. But the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Assistant DA Brennan, brought in Dr. Whitmore and other pediatric cardiac specialists who testified about how critical continuous monitoring is for children with Lucas's specific condition. Every second counts with cardiac events in children with tetralogy of Fallot, Dr. Whitmore testified. The alarm system exists because immediate intervention can mean the difference between full recovery and death, or between death and permanent brain damage. By disconnecting that alarm, the defendant eliminated the only safety net keeping Lucas Montgomery alive. The prosecutor also presented Vivian's search history and her text messages to Kimberly. This wasn't ignorance, Assistant DA Brennan argued. This wasn't a well-meaning aunt making a mistake. The defendant researched how these monitoring systems work. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was willing to risk a child's life because she was jealous of his mother. This was premeditated child endangerment. My victim impact statement at the trial was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I stood in that courtroom, wearing the black dress Jamie had helped me pick out, and I described in detail what it felt like to watch my son's heart stop. The absolute terror of being pushed aside while medical professionals worked frantically to save him. The nightmare of that flat line, that continuous beep. The feeling of my entire world ending. Vivian Montgomery didn't just endanger my son's physical health, I said, my voice shaking but steady. She destroyed my sense of safety. I can't sleep through the night anymore. I have panic attacks every time Lucas has a doctor's appointment. I'm terrified to let him out of my sight, even for a minute. She took away my ability to trust other people around my child. Andrew testified too, talking about the betrayal of his own sister nearly killing his son. I have to live with the knowledge that my sister was willing to hurt Lucas just to hurt my wife, Andrew said, his voice breaking. That's something I'll never get over. That's something that's destroyed my entire family. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Harriet Walsh was harsh. You used your knowledge of medical equipment to deliberately endanger a vulnerable child, Judge Walsh said. Looking directly at Vivian, you researched how to do this. You planned it. You waited for the right moment. Then you lied about it repeatedly until the evidence became absolutely overwhelming. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated, premeditated endangerment of a child's life. Vivian was sentenced to 9 years in prison. She would serve at least 7 before being eligible for parole. She was also ordered to pay all of Lucas's medical expenses related to the incident, plus ongoing therapy costs for both Lucas and me. The bill was already over $200,000 and climbing, but the consequences didn't stop there. Vivian's medical device company fired her immediately when the charges became public. Her professional reputation was utterly destroyed. No healthcare company would ever hire someone who had deliberately endangered a child's life in a hospital setting. Her medical sales license was permanently revoked. Helen and Richard struggled immensely with the reality of what their daughter had done. They'd mortgaged their house to pay for Vivian's defense attorney, only to watch her be convicted anyway. Thomas eventually added, during one painful family meeting at our house, that they'd enabled Vivian's jealousy and cruelty toward me for years. We should have set boundaries, he said quietly, looking older and more broken than I'd ever seen him. We should have protected you and Lucas from her behavior. We told ourselves it was just sibling rivalry, just personality conflicts. We were wrong. I'm sorry, Abigail. I'm so sorry. Andrew cut off all contact with Vivian immediately after the sentencing. He wrote her one letter, and I read it before he mailed it. You almost killed my son because you were jealous of my wife. There's no coming back from that. Don't contact me. Don't contact Abigail. And when you get out of prison in 7 years, stay away from my family. You're my sister by blood, but you're dead to me now. We never heard back from her. Lucas recovered physically, but the trauma affected him deeply. He developed severe anxiety about hospitals and medical procedures. When it was time for his first follow-up appointment after the incident, he had a complete meltdown in our driveway. He was crying and shaking, convinced something terrible was going to happen again. We got him into therapy immediately with Dr. Patel, a child psychologist who specializes in medical trauma. 3 times a week, Lucas would go to Dr. Patel's office with its comfortable couches and shelf full of toys, and slowly, carefully, he started processing what had happened to him. It's not your fault, Dr. Patel would tell him over and over. What Aunt Vivian did was wrong. It was never about you. You're safe now. Slowly, so slowly, Lucas started to believe it. I was in therapy too, seeing a trauma specialist named Dr. Harrison. I was having nightmares every single night, the same dream on repeat, that flat line, that horrible beep, watching my son die while I stood there helpless. You're experiencing post-traumatic stress, Dr. Harrison explained. What you went through was a parent's worst nightmare. It's completely normal to have these reactions. We're going to work through this together. Some days I believed her. Other days I woke up in a panic at 3 in the morning, my heart racing, convinced I could hear that terrible sound of the flat line. It was hard to let anyone watch Lucas now, even people I'd known and trusted for years. When Monica offered to babysit so Andrew and I could go out to dinner for our anniversary, I had a panic attack in the restaurant parking lot and made Andrew drive me home. I know he's safe with Monica, I told Dr. Harrison in our next session. I know that logically, but what if something happens? What if I'm not there? What if isn't a reality? Dr. Harrison said gently. What if is anxiety talking? We need to work on building your trust back, not just in other people but in yourself. In your ability to keep Lucas safe without being physically present every single moment. It was some of the hardest work I've ever done. Jamie and Monica were incredibly patient with me. They understood when I canceled plans at the last minute, because I couldn't leave Lucas's side. They sat with me during my worst days when the anxiety was so bad I could barely function. You're going to get through this, Monica told me during one particularly bad afternoon. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you will. You're one of the strongest people I know, Abby. Andrew and I grew closer through the trauma, forged stronger by what we'd survived together. But he was dealing with his own guilt and pain. I should have believed you, he said one night, both of us lying awake at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep. About Vivian. About how she was treating you. Diana warned you and you told me and I brushed it off. I made excuses for her. I prioritized keeping peace with my sister over protecting you and Lucas. You couldn't have known she'd do something like this, I said, though part of me was still angry about it. I should have listened to you, Andrew insisted. I saw what I wanted to see. I wanted to believe my sister was just awkward, just struggling with jealousy in normal ways. I ignored all the warning signs because acknowledging them would have meant accepting that someone I loved was capable of real cruelty. I'm so sorry, Abigail. We were both in couples therapy too, working through the betrayal and guilt and trauma together. Dr. Chun, our therapist, helped us communicate better, helped us process what had happened without letting it destroy our marriage. Trauma can either tear a relationship apart or make it stronger, Dr. Chan told us. The fact that you're both here doing this work together is a very good sign. We rebuilt our family around the people who truly mattered. Monica and Jamie became the aunts Lucas deserved, present, loving, supportive in real ways. My mother visited every week, though she still carried enormous guilt about leaving Lucas alone with Vivian that night. I should have stayed, she said over and over. I should have known something was wrong. Mom, you had no way of knowing, I told her. Vivian manipulated you. That's not your fault. Helen and Richard saw Lucas only when we were comfortable with it, and only under supervision. They were trying to make amends, to be better grandparents, to acknowledge the ways they'd enabled Vivian's toxic behavior for years. It was a slow, painful process, but we were working on it for Lucas's sake. The hospital implemented new security protocols after what happened to Lucas. Now every alarm disconnection was logged automatically and triggered an immediate investigation. No one could disable an alarm without medical staff being notified instantly within seconds. Diana told me they were using Lucas's case in training sessions for all new nurses and staff members. We teach them how to recognize concerning behavior from visitors, she explained during one of Lucas's follow-up appointments. How to trust their instincts when something feels off. How to document and report suspicions even when they seem minor. Your son's story is going to protect other children, Abigail. That has to count for something. It did count for something. It didn't erase what had happened, didn't take away the nightmares or the trauma or the fear that still gripped me sometimes. But knowing that Lucas's near-death experience might prevent another child from going through the same horror helped me find some meaning in the nightmare we'd survived. A year and a half has passed since that terrible Wednesday evening. Lucas is 9 years old now, and his heart has remained stable. Dr. Whitmore says he's doing remarkably well, all things considered. He still needs monitoring, still needs to be careful about strenuous activity, but he's living a relatively normal life. He plays soccer in a modified league for kids with health conditions. He's back at Oakwood Elementary in 4th grade now, making friends and getting straight A's. He's obsessed with building Lego sets and wants to be an architect when he grows up. Some nights when I watch him sleep, I still can't believe we didn't lose him. I still see that flat line in my mind sometimes, still hear that horrible beep. But then Lucas wakes up in the morning, comes downstairs asking for pancakes, and I'm reminded that we survived. He survived. Andrew has done tremendous work in therapy, dealing with the betrayal and the guilt he carries about his sister. He apologized to me countless times for not believing me about Vivian's behavior, for making excuses for her, for not protecting Lucas from her toxicity. I saw what I wanted to see, he told me during one late-night conversation, both of us sitting on our back porch under the stars. I wanted to believe my sister was just awkward socially, that her jealousy was harmless. I ignored every red flag because acknowledging them would have meant accepting that someone in my family, someone I loved, was truly cruel. I failed you both. I'm sorry. We survived, I said, taking his hand. That's what matters now. We survived and we're stronger because of it. Vivian writes letters from prison. They arrive every few months, addressed to Andrew, to his parents, sometimes even to me. We don't open them. Andrew takes them directly from the mailbox to the shredder in his office. That I don't care what she has to say. He told me after the first letter arrived. There's nothing she could write that would change what she did. Her parole hearing is in 5.5 years. Andrew has already written a statement opposing her early release. So have I. So has Dr. Whitmore. So has the hospital administration. So has Assistant DA Brennan. She's a danger to children, my statement reads. She deliberately endangered my son's life to satisfy a personal grudge. She researched how to do it, planned it carefully, and then lied about it repeatedly. She has shown no genuine remorse, only self-pity. She should serve her full sentence. Lucas knows a simplified version of what happened. That Aunt Vivian made a very bad choice that hurt him badly. That she's in prison because what she did was dangerous and wrong. That it's not his fault and he's safe now. As he gets older, we'll tell him more. But for now, we're focused on helping him feel secure and loved and protected. People ask me sometimes if I've forgiven Vivian. The answer is no. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe I'm supposed to be bigger than this, supposed to find it in my heart to forgive and move on. But I can't. I can't forgive someone who deliberately gambled with my child's life to prove a point about my parenting. She didn't just disconnect an alarm. She researched how to endanger my son most effectively. She waited for the perfect moment when she'd be alone with him. She made a calculated decision that his life was worth less than her need to hurt me, to prove I wasn't as necessary as I thought I was. And then when his heart stopped when he was dying, she went to dinner with friends. If someone did that to your child, if someone deliberately endangered your baby's life just to settle a personal grudge, just to prove a point, would you ever be able to forgive them? Or would you make absolutely certain they paid the full price for what they'd done? I made my choice. I testified at her trial. I wrote my victim impact statement describing every detail of that nightmare. I opposed her plea deal. I'll oppose her parole. And when she gets out of prison in 7 or 9 years, if she ever comes near my family again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what she's capable of. That's not forgiveness. That's justice. That's making sure she paid for what she did to my son. Lucas is upstairs right now, building an elaborate Lego castle and singing along to his favorite songs. His heart monitor, yes, he still wears one at home sometimes, just as a precaution, shows a steady, strong rhythm. 75 beats per minute. Perfect. Andrew is in the kitchen making dinner. And I can hear him talking to Lucas about what happened at school today. Normal family sounds. Beautiful, ordinary, precious sounds. We survived something that should have destroyed us. We came through the other side scarred but intact. And Vivian? She's in Riverbend Correctional Facility, where she'll stay for at least 5 more years. Where she'll have plenty of time to think about what she did. About the child she nearly murdered. About the family she destroyed. I sleep a little better at night knowing she's there. Not well, I still have nightmares, still wake up sometimes in a panic. But better than I did. Because my son is alive. He's upstairs building Lego castles and dreaming about becoming an architect. He's laughing and playing and living the life Vivian tried to take from him. And that, in the end, is the best revenge of all. Justice was served. The price was paid. And we're still here, still fighting, still loving each other through the trauma. My sister-in-law disconnected my son's hospital alarm and nearly killed him. But she didn't win. We did.